You know, we all think we know the story of the Garden of Eden. But what if the story we've been told, the one about sin and punishment, is completely wrong? In this explainer, we're going to dig into a really radical idea, that this ancient myth isn't about humanity's failure at all. It's the story of our first great cognitive awakening.
For thousands of years, this story has been used to teach us about guilt, about obedience. But let's just pause and ask a crazy question. What if Eden wasn't a fall from grace? What if it was actually a coded story about our species' greatest success, our first giant leap in consciousness? All right, so first, let's just quickly run through the version we all know. You've got the perfect garden, right? There's one simple rule from God, a forbidden fruit, and then bam, one act of disobedience that gets humanity kicked out forever, burdened with a legacy of sin. It's a story we all know by heart.
And for centuries, this exact interpretation built a whole framework around moral failure. It basically taught us that being curious is a dangerous thing, and that just doing what you're told is the highest virtue. But here's the thing. That framing wasn't an accident. It was a very deliberate cognitive and political strategy.
Okay, so now, let's flip this entire script on its head. We're going to look at this story through a totally different lens, a linguistic one. It's a model called Odam Tili theory, or OTA for short. And this theory says that these ancient myths, they aren't just simple stories, they are something way, way more profound.
According to OTA, myths like the story of Eden are they're like linguistic fossils. They aren't just tales to teach you a moral lesson, no, they're actually coded records of huge shifts in how humans think. So from this point of view, Eden isn't the story of our fall from grace at all. It's actually the story of our ascent into complex, structured thought.
All right, let's get into the good stuff. We're going to talk about probably the most misunderstood character in any story ever, the serpent. Seriously, just for a minute, forget everything you've ever been told about this character being the big bad guy.
So Odam Tili theory comes in and proposes this incredible inversion. The serpent isn't some tempter trying to lead us into sin. Instead, the serpent is a living, breathing symbol of the scientific process itself. You know, observation, transformation, and the constant flow of information. And this idea, get this, it goes all the way down to the very sounds in the word science. OTA theory breaks down its core sounds, S-C-I. The S sound mimics that serpentine wavy motion. The hard C sound? That signifies a cut, a branching off, a change of state. And I represents an internalized, directed energy. Put them together and you don't get evil. You get a diagram for the process of discovery itself.
And, you know, the Eden story wasn't some kind of outlier here. If you look across ancient cultures, from Egypt to Mesoamerica, the serpent was a universal symbol of knowledge and cosmic order. It stood for things like regeneration, transformation, the dynamic forces of nature, all of which are core ideas in scientific observation.
So this begs a really big question, right? If the story was originally about this incredible cognitive awakening, why on earth was it reframed into a story about sin? Well, the answer, as it so often does, really just comes down to power and control.
You see, early religious and political elites, the people in charge, they understood a very basic truth. A mind that asks questions is a mind that's really hard to govern. So, by flipping the story's meaning, they turned a powerful narrative of human empowerment into a political tool for social control.
And when you lay it out, you can see just how systematic this reversal was. The serpent, which originally symbolized science, became evil. Eve, who stood for our epistemic initiative, that's our courage to go find new knowledge, she was twisted into temptation. Adam, who was reflective consciousness, our ability to analyze things, became a symbol of weakness. And the fruit, which was just materialized information, got rebranded as forbidden knowledge. This whole guilt model was, frankly, an incredibly effective ideological project. It basically gets people to police themselves. Think about it. If you believe your own curiosity is a form of rebellion, or that your own thoughts might be sinful, you're a lot less likely to question authority. You become dependent on someone else, an elite, to tell you what's safe to know.
So let's fast forward from the ancient world to right now, because this old mechanism of control has been given a massive high-tech upgrade for the digital age. The same pattern is playing out as we speak.
The parallel here is, well, it's pretty striking. In the past, you had priests and dogma controlling the flow of information, defining what was okay to think. Today, Well, today you have algorithms and social media feeds that serve a very similar function of cognitive containment. They shape what we see, and in turn, how we think.
So now here we are, living in a new kind of Eden, an algorithmic Eden. It's a space that's designed to reward quick, emotional, reactive thinking, and to discourage deep, independent inquiry. The whole system is built to keep us passively consuming inside the beautiful walled garden of the feed, instead of reaching for that transformative knowledge that lies just outside of it.
Which is why it's so important that we reclaim the original empowering meaning of this story. This isn't a charter for obedience. It's the chronicle of humanity's very first revolution.
So let's put these symbols back in their original light. The serpent isn't evil. It is the beautiful, dynamic process of scientific discovery, of observing, seeing patterns, and transforming our understanding.
Eve represents initiative. She's that intuitive leap, the part of us that asks, why? And Adam is consciousness, the analytical mind that sits back and makes sense of the answers. They're the two halves of human cognition, working together.
And the fruit? It's not forbidden. It's simply information. It's that incredible aha moment when an abstract idea becomes a concrete reality, something you can finally see and understand.
So what this really means is that Eden was never ever a fall. It was the awakening. It's a story that celebrates the revolutionary birth of human self-awareness and independent thought. It is, at its core, the story of what makes us human.
And that brings us to the final and most essential truth of all this. The real reason this powerful story was inverted, both thousands of years ago and in our modern algorithmic world, is because an awakened mind is and will always be ungovernable.